When Halloran and Danny have their private conversation in the hotel kitchen, we are given the following explanation of what their shared psychic power is.
You know, Doc, when something happens, it can leave a trace of itself behind. Maybe things that happen leave other kind of traces behind. Not things that anyone can notice, but things that people who shine can see. Just like they can see things that haven't happened yet.
This simple description applies not just to Danny's experience, but also to the actual film structure. Repeatedly throughout The Shining, Kubrick bombards us with visual, auditory and conceptual hints of what is about to happen next. It's a common psychological device in film, sometimes referred to as foreshadowing, and has been used by suspense masters going all the way back to Alfred Hitchcock. In The Shining, however, the use of foreshadowing fits in as a narrative device. It makes the audience share Danny's psychic traumas of the hotel, his anticipation of the horror to come. During the conversation with Halloran, Danny asks,
Mr. Halloran, are you scared of this place?
And immediately we cut to our first wide shot of their conversation, which shows a set of knives in the background pointing directly at Danny's head, a hint of the murderous danger that awaits the family. Now you might automatically think coincidental, but I'm going to call it and say no, that's deliberate, and perhaps when you've seen the rest of the examples in this video you might agree. Jack's knowledge of a former caretaker murdering his family is also a foreknowledge for the audience of the film's coming events.
But at some point during the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He ran amok and killed his family with an axe.
Aside from the obvious on-screen flashes of the twin ghost girls prior to Danny seeing their dead bodies, we are subliminally hinted of their presence several times when the Torrances are being shown around the hotel. At least 3 times we see women in pairs carrying luggage about. 2 of these pairs are heard wishing goodbye to Mr. Ullman.
For everything first.
Goodbye, Mr. Ullman.
Goodbye. Good morning, Jack.
Oh, goodbye, Mr. Ullman.
Goodbye, girls.
And the most prominent link between these women and the twin girls is that the pair we see outside of Jack's apartment are seen with a portion of hallway in the background that features the same blue and white flowered wallpaper that we see when the twins' dead bodies are revealed later. This wallpaper appears at no other point in the film besides here and the 2 dead twins. In the first tricycle scene, the red floors of the hallway may be a subliminal foresight of the river of blood which Wendy sees in the film's climax. And the red painted hall that she walks down just prior to seeing the river of blood also appears to be a subliminal to this effect. Nowhere else in the movie do we see a red hallway. Danny being chased playfully by his mother into the hotel maze, this anticipates him being chased by his kill-crazy father near the end of the film. Her teasing dialogue here also mimics the close proximity with which the camera chases Danny later.
I'm gonna get you. You better run fast. Look out. I'm coming in close.
She even reaches out with her arms as if about to strangle him, which is what Danny will later claim happened to him in room 237. The sound of the tricycle wheels alternating between the carpet and floorboards, this sounds uncannily like the music when Danny is chased through the freezing maze by his father. Now sure, some of you are going to completely disagree with that. It's definitely one that's open to interpretation. I can't say with certainty that it's deliberate, but I do believe it was. But this video isn't dependent on it being deliberate because I've got plenty of other examples of foreshadowing to show you. When Jack is chopping his way through the bathroom door, we see a shot in which Wendy is crying and screaming in the background on the right portion of the screen. On the left of the screen, we see the tip of the axe repeatedly smashing through the wood of the door. This visual arrangement almost looks like Wendy is actually being killed with the axe. All we're missing is the blood. In Danny's vision of the murdered twins, Kubrick very subtly uses this device again. We begin with a shot of Danny riding off into the distance in the green hallway and taking a right turn. The sudden introduction of this scary music is quite jarring considering the scene that went before it.
Bye. Over and out.
But also this dramatic music lets us know right away that we're about to see something scary. As Danny then turns a left corner, the musical drum of surprise kicks in a second before the ghost girls actually appear on screen. It's as if the music was anticipating what was around the corner. When you think about it, there was different ways this could have been played out. It could have been played as just a normal bike riding scene like the other ones that came before it, and then turn the corner and then the shock music. That would have been the standard way of doing it. But Kubrick lets us know in advance what's around the corner.
It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
The scene of the dead girls may also be foreshadowing Wendy's discovery of Halloran's body. Both she and Danny in their separate scenes take a right turn and then a left before seeing blood-soaked corpses. And in both scenes the camera takes us in for a close-up, one with a series of visual cuts and one with a fast zoom. The overwhelming red and white decor of the Gold Room lavatory may also be a subliminal representation of the historic bloodbath that has been and is yet to come again. The lavatory scene in which Danny has his first shining episode features a shower curtain draped over a bathtub with Danny looking into a mirror on the right wall. This composition is very similar to that of Jack's encounter with the naked woman later in the story in room 237, and both scenes feature variations on the same piece of music. Also, both of these shots begin in a bedroom. This one begins in Danny's bedroom and goes through to the bathroom, and the other one begins in the room 237 bedroom and goes through to the bathroom again. Bedroom into bathroom in both scenes. And in both instances, they see something horrible in a mirror. As Wendy wheels a tray with Jack's breakfast through the lobby, she walks the exact same path that Halloran does in his death scene. And as Wendy is about to reach the same pillar that Jack will later hide behind before he kills Halloran, the scene ends and we cut to a different part of the hotel. Jack's repeated throwing of a tennis ball at the wall above the fireplace is our foresight that he will later be chopping through doors with an axe in pursuit of his family. Note the loud echoing bang of the ball and compare it with the slamming thud as Jack chops through doors. And he's throwing the ball at human figures above the fireplace. We could take those as twins, or we could take it as Danny and Wendy, who he will later try and kill with an axe. An additional reinforcement of tennis ball throwing as a metaphor for axe swinging is that Jack slams the ball against the floor just a few metres away from where he later kills Halloran. He then throws the ball toward the position where Wendy stands when she sees Halloran's body. Note also that there are toys scattered about on the floor here, including, to Jack's left, a small black teddy bear with its torso clothed in red, a foresight of Halloran's death, the Black Chef. And this all links up with Jack's comment that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, which I think basically translates as all work and no murder. I think this scene is also a subliminal link to the deaths of the twin girls. They ask Danny to come and play with them, and Jack slams the ball to the floor where Danny has been playing. This is a good example of Kubrick weaving multiple metaphors into a single shot. Another example of playful ball throwing as a foreshadow of axe swinging is that Danny and Wendy are shown throwing snowballs at each other outside. This happens as Jack stands staring with madness out of the Colorado lounge windows, perhaps suggesting that he's already thinking about killing his family with an axe. Some other interesting but slightly less conclusive examples are the psychiatrist telling Wendy,
"No, kids can scare you to death."
Forever.
That line obviously anticipates the vision of the dead twins, often cited as the film's scariest moment. The word Stovington on Jack's t-shirt, when he's eating breakfast, this is viewed backwards through the very same mirror that Wendy sees Danny's red rum graffiti later. And a man who stands staring over the tabletop maze in the same stance that Jack does, he can be seen in the far background here as Jack tells his wife that he's got the job as Overlook caretaker. The position of this ghost-like man in the background, he is on the opposite side of the table to where Jack stands later on, and so he may be conceptually tied into the mirror image maze that Jack sees in the tabletop model himself. And the guy is examining the maze closely. I think that's a clue about the fact that the actual tabletop maze changes between shots. The top-down shot itself shows a much bigger and more complex maze than the one that Jack was looking at in the first shot. And this guy looking closely at it in the background, I think that's a hint that we should be paying attention to the changing layout of this maze. And of course, when Jack talks in the car about settlers who got snowbound in the mountains and had to eat each other up and kill each other, that's a foreshadow of the family themselves in the hotel being trapped throughout the winter and trying to kill each other too. There are many, many examples of the film using subliminal association to force us into experiencing little Danny's terrible, shining visions, mostly done in the form of visual foreshadowing. Perhaps this simulated psychic vision is another root of the film's sense of unseen menace. What could be more frightening than being a solitary child with psychic foresight and an overactive imagination running away from a murderous adult in an endless maze that plays spatial tricks on the mind, and knowing that the horror is coming well in advance? That's the power of foreshadowing in horror. And these kinds of foreshadowing techniques are not actually that unusual in horror films. Loads and loads of classic horror films use them. And The Shining not only does a lot more of it in much more clever ways than most horror movies, but it actually ties in with the narrative regarding psychic shining abilities where characters can see horror coming in the future. You've been listening to Rob Ager. If you want to know more about The Shining, do check out my website, collativelearning.com, where you'll find my extensive written analysis of The Shining. And also on my website, I've got a ton of digital downloads of film analysis videos and quite a few on The Shining there too. So go and check them out. Bye for now.